Good evening, class. Hope you guys are all having a really good week. This week I'm choosing to do my behavior management and classroom management strategy via video. A little bit about the situation. Again, if you guys don't know, I'm a physical education teacher. I typically got this class every Wednesday, first period in the morning. Kids would come to my class, they'd be set off, already had gotten into fights, stuff had happened at home, whatever. And in the beginning of the year, a lot of times I would punish the whole class. So one thing I had to learn how to do was to not punish the whole class so that development was probable for the students that, were following the directions and came in a good state of mind to learn. But I had, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 students here who had serious behavior, trauma-induced related behavior problems, IEPs that were pretty serious. Kasim, I'm not going to mention last names, had a serious anger management fighting problem. Samia, anger management fighting problem. Kaylin, anger management fighting. And what I mean by fighting is, Kaylin and Kasim, they get in a fight every period. That always has to be documented. I don't know what their teacher does for it, but it seems like, to me, they come in a state, this is Samia, Kaylin, and Kasim coming in a state where they feel like they have to protect themselves. So for me, it's also a constant reminder, again, not punishing the whole class, but having to remind them that they're not in danger, they're in a safe place. I'm always going to stop. If fights start, I'm going to stop everything. I'm going to handle it. I'm going to take whatever precautions I have to have. With this class, since these guys are pretty loud, I use a lot of nonverbal cues. For example, in the beginning of the year, I would walk around and I'd be yelling, bring it in, do this, do that, because they weren't necessarily moving. I really wasn't giving them a chance to do the right things or to have time. And now I'll kind of say, all right, it's time to pick up the equipment, and I'll blow the whistle 2 or 3 times. And then I'll instruct one time, everybody, go sit in the bleachers. When you're done cleaning up the equipment, go sit in the bleachers. And that's all I'll really say. And then I'll give them time to do it. And if they don't, instead of using my words or getting nasty, I kind of just I point to where everybody else is. And then if there's still a problem, I'll ask a question. I'll go, do you see what everybody else is doing? And they're kind of my nonverbal cues. Another one I use is I go like this, and I'd always say, bring it in. So once they, typically in the beginning of class, we come in, I have the students establish the guidelines, which is another one I use. Because for some reason, with my kids, especially being in the multicultural education background, it just seems like when I say, hey guys, don't fight, let's encourage confidence, this, that, and the other, it's a lot different when I let them pick the rules. I'll say, hey guys, let's go over some quick rules. Who remembers the rules? And I'll say, raise your hand if you have a rule. And usually 2 or 3 of them or 4 of them will say no fighting, no pushing, no shoving. I don't even have to say. I kind of let them get reminders, and I'll go, all right guys, well, what's the punishment for these actions? What's the punishment for being negative? And I always say we have 1 warning. If you're being negative, if I have to speak to you twice, you're sitting out for 10 minutes. Or I do about 5-10 minutes, something like that. But as long as I know what it is, I always want to say, I want my management and my behavior and my discipline stuff to be clear and concise, and everybody has to follow the same rules. Now, some may get additional reminders, which I'm going to get to in a second. So with the anger management, now you got some more of the situation. What I do with Kasim is Kasim comes in, and he literally, I know a lot about his situation. He has 9 brothers and sisters. He gets in fights at home all the time. I have to talk to him and go, all right, Kasim, try to ask him how he's doing. Sometimes he doesn't come around. So what I do for these students specifically, since I didn't get to Zori, has depression, isolation. She's a student that will just shut down completely and hide. So I always have to know where she's at during these states. So I'm going to get to it in a second, but that's getting her engaged Richie has severe ADD. He can't, not that he can't, but he doesn't necessarily sit down very long, and he can't pay attention without having to move around and make an outburst. Is very distracting to me. So what I do with him is I give a job. All right, so I walk in. I let the students establish the guidelines, and that through that we kind of model the ideal behavior before we split up with the equipment. And then I provide these students with a choice, because in Kalen and Kasim's case, they're very angry kids. But when Kasim, once he starts playing football, it's like everything melts away. But I had to give him this choice. He doesn't always want to do what I wanted to do. So for these guys, me having choice and group, and I call it skill development time, really helps them get out of whatever state of mind they were when they came in, and start to get in a state of mind of where they can learn and where they can do things that develop in areas that they need to develop in. So I'll provide, let's just for this last class's example, we came in, we established the guidelines, modeled some ideal behavior. I avoided punishing the whole class in doing that. I gave Richie a job. I get him to sweep the gym now as soon as he comes in, and it just puts him to work. Zori, I have to reassure her that the option that she's going to want is going to be available. And that's usually the scooters. So I'll have 2 Nerf footballs for the guys that want to play football. I'll have a couple scooters, and then hula hoops are the other option. And then I usually have a couple soft basketballs. So students have 4 different options of what to do. And it's amazing for me to watch them split into groups and just learn on their own and by themselves. So again, in Kalen's case, I have to kind of pull him aside and remind him, hey, Kalen, we're not going to hit anybody, right? We're not going to do these things. And look, I kind of give him a little bit of a positive reward chart. Okay, all right, because I have Kalen after school, and he's the main one that really gives people a run for their money. He gets in about 3 fights a day, but he's stopped that behavior almost completely in my class. During my class, I'll say, hey, Kalen, listen, if you are nice and if you cannot run into anybody and touch anybody and start any fights, I said, I'll help teach you basketball for a little while after school during dismissal. And I always have that deal with him. And ever since I did that, it started changing him a little bit. With Samia, it's kind of the same as Kalen. I have to give her reminders. I have to give her a job. I usually ask her to help me get the stuff out of the closet, to help clean the stuff up. And that helps. She kind of has that like motherly role, and she likes having that responsibility. That seems to take a little bit of the pressure she has away to fit in with her students. And now while we have this group work going on, I'm usually walking around in the different groups. I stop. I see what questions they have. I see kind of what they're learning. The football kids play this game called Mossies, where one kid's throwing and 3 or 4 are catching. So I always am coming around. I'm giving cues about throwing. I'm offering praise and giving them the right behavior. I'm showing them nonverbal cues and demonstrating how we want to do things. The girls in the hula hoops, or boys too, I'll always kind of go around and ask them, like, all right, how many can you do, or how long can you do it without stopping? And that kind of gives them a goal to work towards. Basketball, I'm teaching fundamental mechanics, but I'm always trying to reward them with when they start to do stuff right, they show improvement, they show initiative. And I, more often than not, a student that is higher skilled and demonstrating the stuff right, I use them as an example, and I'll say, here, I said, look how he's shooting the ball, and then I'll offer, let's say Devontae. I said, I'll notice how Devontae has his feet, and he bends his legs when he's shooting the ball. He has a nice one-handed finish, and I'll say, Devontae, why don't you teach a couple of these students right here that are working with you how you're getting such a good shot off and stuff like that. And, for me, getting all these let's see, Zori, Richie, Kalen, Samia, and Kasim, getting them to work and getting them into a learning mindset and an engaged mindset is what helps me deal with the classroom management behavior stuff. Again, I had about 30 kids in this class, and I had to come up with a specific plan for these 5 students. Now, if I didn't, Kasim and Kalen are bound to get in a fight. Richie's going to be disrupting. Samia is going to get in a fight at some point with another girl. And this is all stuff that's happened. Zori could just break down and hide. and I have all these things going on because that's what happens in their homeroom. But for me, it's all about getting them in, giving good reminders and positive reinforcements, and then giving those students kind of the extra little instruction and guidance that they need to get them out of, again, whatever is going on in the school and at home. And when they come into my class in the gym, how can I get something out of them, and how can I get them to be productive and not display these emotions that they're coming from at home. So again, my management plan procedures were I let the students establish the guidelines. I model ideal behavior. That's before equipment time. Both of those are before I break into skill development. I try to avoid punishing the whole class. Now, at times, my punishment of the whole class is kind of when everything's out of hand and I gave good direction. I know I did things right. And if they don't do it right, I'll just kind of make them do it again. And that's my punishing the whole class. But I'm not punishing the whole class by making them sit out for extended periods of time like I used to. Also, again, offering praise to students as I'm walking down to the different groups. Using nonverbal cues has helped me a whole lot. John has helped me with that. My person that's coming in to observe, because doing that has just really helped save my voice and just help things go a lot smoother. Also, the nonverbal commitment, again, that's big. But yeah, so I think that this helped me so much because when I was first starting off, I had no idea about these kids, their situation, their background. So what I was kind of doing in the beginning, let me try this. I had to gain information on these students. Once I got a better understanding of them and what the problems were that they had and what was setting them off, I was able to kind of adjust and maintain a high head and, a level head and just deal with it almost, with ease. Because again, I just had to gain information. I had to learn the students. And I had to make sure that I was giving them a chance to succeed given their strengths and weaknesses. And like I said, it surprised me when I try these different things, how much of a positive response I can get. But that's all I got for you guys. And I hope it helps.